The winters here in New York are long and dark. I've lived here almost my whole life, so I'm pretty much used to it. But last winter felt like it would never end. I think it had something to do with being stuck inside with a very energetic and inquisitive 3-year-old girl and a new baby boy. Don't get me wrong, I love being able to stay home with my babies, but I would definitely say cabin fever had set in pretty bad last winter. It was a pretty nice day for early March, and the snow had basically all melted. The sun was actually shining, so I decided to take them for a nice walk around the neighborhood. I told Abby, my daughter, to go find her boots while I put the baby in his stroller and tucked the blankets around him. Abby loved walks, mostly because she loved to see all the dogs walking in the neighborhood. She loved all kinds of dogs, big and small. I knew she'd love to have one someday, so I'd figured we'd probably get one in the next few years, when Max was a little older. Abby quickly found her boots, and we put on our coats and started out. It really was such a beautiful day for being March in upstate New York, and I remember thinking as we were walking on the sidewalk past our neighbor's house that maybe I was finally getting used to parenting 2 children. It had been a big adjustment, and I knew Abby needed more of my attention than I felt like I'd been able to give her. She was so happy in that moment, walking along the sidewalk, stepping in puddles melted from the hopefully last winter snow. There were a lot of dogs out walking that day, and Abby was having so much fun. She said, "Aw, cute puppy," to every dog, no matter how big it was. Since we were all enjoying the walk, I thought it would be a good day to go on a longer walk. I decided to turn on the paved trail to the edge of the wooded preserve next to our neighborhood. Abby was singing that baby shark song, and being that it was such a nice day, I didn't even mind. Then all of a sudden, she stopped and said, "Cute puppy?" I didn't see anyone on the trail, so I thought she was asking for a puppy, and told her we'd probably see one soon. But she didn't budge and was staring into the woods. "Cute puppy, Mommy? Cute puppy?" But she didn't sound happy. She sounded scared. I told her I didn't see a puppy, and she pointed into the woods. I saw it. It wasn't a cute puppy. I don't know what it was. It was taller than a person, and my first thought was that I was looking at a bear. But it stood on 2 legs, or at least that's what I thought, since it was partially blocked by the trees. It started walking slowly towards us, and I held my finger to my lips to tell Abby to be quiet. Surprisingly, she listened. My heart was pounding out of my chest, and I was trying to plan our escape when the beast walked into a clearing of trees, and I saw all of it. It was a dog or a wolf of some kind. At least that's what the head was. But the body looked like a giant, muscular person covered in dark fur. I was questioning everything I thought I knew. Was I looking at a werewolf? I just knew we had to get out of there, and quickly. Just then, out of nowhere, a deer came running past us and right past the beast, which immediately took off after the deer, heading away from us. I grabbed Abby's hand and told her to run. As we were running, we heard something like a scream, but not a human scream. At least I don't think so. I don't know if it was the deer or the beast. Abby asked what it was, and I told her I didn't know, but everything would be fine. We just had to keep moving. The rest of that walk is a blur. I barely remember getting us out of there. I tried so hard not to let Abby see how terrified and shaken I was after that encounter with what I later learned could only be a dogman. That was almost a year ago, and luckily Abby doesn't remember the walk. But I will never forget. It's strange how when I tell people what I saw, they usually fire back with an explanation. Well, it was probably this, or I think it might have been that. They all do it. They all have a suggestion of what I might have seen or what I probably saw. They never let themselves consider that what I saw might actually just be what I saw. It makes me laugh because they say it quickly, too. Like, no sooner have I said the words and they fire back with their theories. It's like a reflex action that they can't help, like their brains say, "No, this challenges what we know. It can't be true." I did see what I saw. I saw it as plainly as I see my hand before my face. It was solid. It was there, and it was real. I'd been at the fairground. They set up the rides and the booths up on Markham's Fields about twice a year. You always know it's coming because you see the flyers plastered all over town. Anyway, I always loved these fairs, and particularly the rides. I don't know about you, but there's always something about the fact that a ride wasn't there a week ago, and that it's been unloaded from the back of someone's truck and put together with a screwdriver. It makes them 10 times scarier than the rides you get at Six Flags or Disneyland or some other amusement park. It gives them that added element of danger that, in addition to the speed and the movement of the rides, they might not have been put together well. Of course, you rarely hear of anyone actually getting hurt on the rides. Otherwise, they'd be shut down, and I'm sure there are all kinds of safety checks. But anyway, last June, a few friends and I headed down to the fair. After a lot of needling, we managed to convince Donna, who hates these kinds of rides, to go on the Kraken. The Kraken is a huge 8-armed contraption. You sit in one carriage with 4 other people. The ride has 8 total carriages, each at the end of one of the long mechanical arms, and they all get lifted up into the air. The entire thing spins, and the carriages themselves spin too. There were 4 of us and only 3 spaces in one of the carriages. I let Donna and the others get into that one, and I went into one by myself. I was partly pleased because the carriages with less weight tend to spin faster, and you get a better ride. We waved at each other, and the ride set off. But once it got started, and just as we were being lifted into the air, I happened to glance towards the tree line, and that's when I saw it. It was standing hunched against one of the trees and watching the crowd. I'd seen nature documentaries where you see wolves or lions standing at the edge of the brush, using the trees as camouflage, as they eye their prey. This was the same. This thing wasn't just watching out of curiosity, it was panning and selecting, weighing up its next move. It was bigger than any man or ape I'd ever seen. Judging by the size of the trees, I'd say it was between 7 and 8 feet tall. And it was standing on its hind legs, like a person, but with this backwards sort of lean, as if the hips were a little different than ours. From the glimpses I got, it seemed to be hunched. It wasn't a person. I think the best way I could describe it would be a cross between a dog and a man, or the kind of creature you see in horror films, as if the head of a massive wolf had just been put on the shoulders of a man. It was covered from head to toe in matted brown hair, but you could tell from the way it was built that it was powerful, and if it wanted to leap out and grab someone, it could. I screamed, but of course so did everyone else because of the ride. I pointed frantically at the trees, trying to get someone's attention to warn them that the thing was there. But as the ride kicked into gear, I got spun around and my view got altered. Soon enough, I was facing away from the tree line, trying my best against the G-force to turn in my seat and look back over my shoulder to see it again. All I saw were quick flashes of it, tiny, snatched glimpses. By the time the ride finished, the creature was gone. I kept scanning the trees to try and see it again and show it to the others. I tried to explain to them how it looked, how it had a canine head and a muscular body, sharp, piercing, intelligent eyes. All I got back was quick-fire explanations as to what they thought it could have been. I saw what I saw. Sometimes when I'm alone at night, I still see it in my head. I can't get it out of my head. How it's something that shouldn't exist. But it does. In the fall of 1997, a girl went missing in my town. I was 24 at the time, and my brother was a volunteer firefighter. He had asked me to be a part of one of the search parties the town organized to look for her. We spent several days sweeping parks, abandoned lots, and the forests around town. As the days passed, the search parties got smaller, but I stayed with it, as did most of the people on my crew. We did second sweeps of the deeper forested area, knowing that she would be harder to find out there. With fewer of us out there, we broke off alone, but we were usually within yelling distance of each other, and we also used our walkie-talkies. One afternoon, about an hour before dark, I spotted some weird marks. I was keeping my eye out for footprints, ones that would mean someone had maybe brought her out there. But these tracks weren't shoe prints. They looked like a bare foot. A huge footprint with marks at the toes, almost like claw marks. But the shape was definitely human. And there were only 2 prints. Someone was walking upright, so it couldn't be an animal. I called another crew member over to take a look, and he was just as confused as I was. Since we couldn't rule out that they were human, although they were weird, we followed them. We followed them for what felt like miles into the woods. It was getting late and dark, but we didn't want to lose the marks overnight in case it rained and they washed away. We radioed for help and got one other person, an older guy in the department. He seemed even less convinced about the footprints, but agreed to follow them with us. At dusk, the footprints got harder to see, even with our flashlights. We had to slow down and search carefully. It was starting to seem less likely that someone had carried her this far, but we weren't ready to give up. It's the only lead we had. While we were stumbling around in the near dark, we started to hear sounds. Someone or something walking and stepping on twigs and dry leaves. We called out, thinking it might be another member of the search party, but no one answered. We swung our flashlights around and still didn't see anything. The sounds continued, and I thought about the marks. Whoever left them might still be out there with us. And it could be someone dangerous, especially considering the circumstances. The 3 of us stood back to back, looking into the forest. I had a small knife with me, and the flashlights were heavy-duty, but not exactly any kind of a weapon. Finally, we saw a shape approaching. It was just a tall shadow walking towards us, slowly and awkwardly. We called out some more, asking him to identify himself, but he didn't answer. As he got closer, I noticed that his shape was all wrong. He was wider than a human, and the head was way too big, and he was slightly hunched over, and his legs were bent backwards, almost like a dog. We pointed all 3 flashlights at it and could tell pretty quickly that it wasn't a man. Also, that it had almost certainly made the tracks we were finding. It was on 2 legs, with human-shaped feet. But the rest of it was like canine-looking, especially the chest and the head. It was covered in thick fur, and its face looked more like a dog than a human. It had ears that stuck up straight. Its mouth was open, and saliva dripped from its sharp-looking teeth. It slowly stepped towards us, never looking away, staring straight into our eyes. The eyes were glowing faintly in the dark. We all backed away slowly as it advanced, moving back the way we had come. It didn't change its pace, and neither did we. At least until it howled and lunged, and then we took off running. It took us a long time to get out of the woods. It was dark, and we were panicked, so we got lost a few times. Occasionally, one of us would think that we had seen the creature again, and we'd start running. It was chaos in the woods. Eventually, we made our way out of the forest and called the police. While we waited for them to arrive, we planned what we would tell them. All we could agree on was that it was some kind of a half-man, half-dog beast, a dogman. But we knew that it would sound ridiculous and no one would believe us, So we planned on saying just that we had followed human footprints deep into the forest, and that we believed that the person who took the little girl might have made them. The police did arrive and agreed to send a team in the next day, following our instructions to where we had lost the footprints. After a full day's search, they returned saying that they couldn't find anything suspicious. They also didn't say anything about a dogman creature. 2 days later, the girl was found alive. She'd wandered off and gotten lost in the thick trees. It was a miracle she was even alive, especially when I think about what we saw. We made some general reports to animal control about a wild dog in the woods, but they didn't take it very seriously. To this day, I can't explain what I saw in there. Nobody believes it. But I've never gone back in those woods, and I never will.